All right, let's get into it. The Pi Network dropped a pretty big technical announcement back on April 8th about a new RPC server they've launched on their testnet. Now, don't let the jargon scare you off. What we're really talking about is a single piece of software that might just be the key to unlocking a whole new wave of decentralized apps. So let's dive in and see what's actually going on here.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to start with a fundamental problem that basically all blockchains have. Then we'll meet the star of the show, the RPC server, or as we're going to call it, the blockchain's waiter. We'll see how it juggles different jobs, how it solves these massive digital traffic jams, and why it's so important to have a dress rehearsal before the main event. And then we'll look at the big picture, what this all means for the future.
Seriously, just try to imagine that for a second. You open up an app, click, you pay a fee, you check your own profile, click, another fee. Sounds nuts, right? I mean, who would ever use an app like that? The internet we use every day, Web 2.0, is built on this idea that you can just access stuff. It's free, it's instant. But for blockchains, making that simple experience a reality, that has been a huge technical challenge.
And yeah, this really gets to the heart of the problem. On a blockchain, almost anything you do can cost you something, what's called a gas fee, and you might have to wait for it to be confirmed. This new update from Pi Network is aimed squarely at that problem. The goal is to make decentralized apps, or DApps, feel just as smooth and just as free as the apps you're already used to.
Okay, so the hero of our story is this thing, the RPC server. So what is it really? Well, you have to think of a blockchain as this super secure, kind of closed-off system. It doesn't just talk to anybody. The RPC server is basically the translator, the go-between. It's the bridge that lets an app on your phone actually get information from and send information to the blockchain.
The best way to think about this is like a restaurant, right? Your app is the customer sitting at the table. The blockchain is the kitchen. It's a very secure place where all the really important work gets done. Now, you, the customer, can't just wander into the kitchen and start yelling orders at the chef. You need a waiter. The RPC server is that waiter. It takes your app's order, runs it back to the kitchen in a language the kitchen understands, and then brings the result right back to your table. Simple as that.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This waiter doesn't just take one kind of order. The whole point of this new server is that it's built to handle two completely different types of requests. And trust me, understanding this difference is the key to this whole thing.
So here's the breakdown. On one hand, you have read-only calls. Think of this like checking your balance at an ATM. You're just looking at information that's already there. It's free, it's instant. On the other hand, you have state-changing transactions. That's like actually transferring money out of your account. It actually changes the permanent record on the blockchain. And for that, you've got to pay a fee.
So why is making those read-only calls free such a massive deal? Because when you're using an app, especially something like a game or social media, it's estimated that something like 99% of what you're doing is just reading data. You're checking your score, you're looking at your digital collection, you're scrolling through a feed. All of those are simple read-only requests. And this quote just nails it perfectly. If you had to pay a tiny fee for every single one of those clicks, well, the user experience would be awful. It really is like a restaurant charging you just to look at the menu. Nobody would stick around for that. Making these reads free and fast is absolutely essential for any decentralized app that wants to attract, actual users.
Okay, so Pi Network is providing this public waiter for everyone to use for free. That's great. But it creates a new problem, right? What happens when thousands of different apps and millions of users are all trying to get the attention of that same waiter at the exact same time? Well, you get a huge digital traffic jam. The technical word for it is latency. That data that's supposed to show up instantly now starts taking seconds to load. For a simple app, that's just annoying. But for a serious business, maybe a finance app where prices are changing every single second, that kind of delay could actually mean losing real money. And that's exactly why this update also lets developers run their own private RPC servers. Think of the public server as a free highway. It's awesome, but it can get totally clogged during rush hour. A private server is like building your own private expressway right next to it. Only your app's traffic gets to use it, which guarantees you get total control, amazing speed, and rock-solid reliability for your users.
Now, this all sounds fantastic, but we're talking about a really complex system here. You can't just flip a switch and launch this for millions of people with real assets on the line. And that's why the announcement is very, very clear that this is all happening right now on what's called the testnet.
So, the testnet is basically the full-on dress rehearsal before the big show. It's a safe sandbox where developers can go wild using fake money. If something breaks or a bug pops up, who cares? No one loses any real value.
The mainnet, though, that's the live show. That's where real money and real assets are moving around. Every transaction is permanent, and the stakes are incredibly high. Testing everything on the testnet first isn't just a good idea, it's the only safe and professional way to do this.
So let's kind of pull all this together. What's the big takeaway from all this technical talk? It's not just about one piece of software. It's really about building the foundational plumbing that makes decentralized apps practical and usable for normal, everyday people.
So this RPC server, it's that waiter that hides all the complexity of the kitchen. It gives us that free and fast data that we absolutely need for a smooth experience. It opens up that private expressway so serious businesses can build reliable apps. And it's all being stress tested in a safe environment before it ever goes live. At the end of the day, technology like this only wins if it feels completely seamless to the person using it.
All of this leads to a pretty massive question. As this kind of technology gets better, making data access free, fast, and spread out across a global network, does it start to threaten the old way of doing things? The traditional, centralized databases run by a handful of giant tech companies. Could this be the start of a real shift?
But then again, maybe there's another side to it. Is there some hidden cost to all this free access? A cost that eventually has to be paid, maybe by the people running the network, that we just haven't really thought about yet? Every big technological leap brings new questions, and that's definitely one worth thinking about.